It opens with one of the best killer bass lines of a theme song ever on television. The other one is Night Court. Hello, welcome to Have You Heard of Me? The TV show we are accentuating, spotlighting, bringing up is Barney Miller. It all started when I was looking at the Emmys. I was going through the 70s and looking at the Emmys, the nominations and the winners in the 70s. And I was looking at 1977 in particular. So here's something here. For Outstanding Comedy Series for 1977, the nominees were The Mary Tyler Moore Show, All in the Family, MASH, The Bob Newhart Show, and Barney Miller. Now, the winner, and some may say rightly so, was Mary Tyler Moore Show. That was the year it went off the air. The show was just good from beginning to the end, those 7 years on the air. All those shows are iconic and still talked about. But not Barney Miller, I don't think. Not talked about like All in the Family or MASH or Bob Newhart Show even. I think it's probably the least talked about out of those five. But it was a really good show. And it was nominated almost every year it was on the air. It went on the air in 1975, went off the air in 1982. 8 seasons it ran. And that's crazy. I mean, it was nominated for so many awards for acting and writing and stuff. And these are the awards that it did win. It did win Best Comedy Series in 1982. It won for writing in 1980 and directing in 1979. None of the actors won. They were nominated, but didn't win. It spawned a sequel, Fish, with Abe Vigoda, and almost spawned another sequel. And some famous people went on to more famous things from this show. But this is a show that I remember watching off and on, kind of. My parents watched it. I watched it off and on. So I remember some of the episodes. I remember Fish, actually, because that was a little later. And I remember Todd Bridges was on it, the man of all things. But I remember it being a decent show, a decent cop show, a comedy. And so as I was doing some research, there's some things actually that I didn't hear of that I'm glad to know. I didn't realize because I was just too young. So I didn't realize that. So the series was born off an unsold pilot called The Life and Times of Captain Barney Miller. And it actually debuted as part of a summer anthology series. I didn't know that, called Just for Laughs. And Hal Linden, who played Barney Miller, and Abe Vigoda, who played Fish, were in the original roles. So I didn't know that part. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I did not know that at all. But he had so many people that were on here. And in that movie, in that anthology, Abby Dalton was his wife. She wanted to play on Falcon Crest. Later they made it into a series, of course. It was a hit. The one thing I remember about the series is that it was very diverse. They had Ron Glass, who was Black. They had Jack Sue, who was Asian. And they had a little bit of everybody in there. It really reflected where they were. And it was filmed at CBS Studio Center, so I know that. And what I want to say about this also, that theme song is just so good. They were nominated for music. They were nominated for a lot of stuff. Max Gail, who went on to win Emmy for General Hospital last couple of years, he was huge on this show. He was nominated for a supporting actor all the time, just didn't make it. Always there. It's very New York. To me, it predates, I mentioned Night Court, it predates Night Court, it predates Hill Street Blues. It predates a lot of those cop shows. It comes after Kojak and all those, and that was San Francisco. But like this was completely New York. It felt gritty. The sets I remember the sets were great. I always loved those sets back then. I always feel like Night Court, I was there. Like I felt like I was there. It just seemed like it was dirty. You could feel it, you could see the roaches or whatever. But it's like very cool, very hip. I always thought that when I saw those things, I was like, oh, I want to work there. I totally want to work there. Danny Arnold was the creator of the show. I'm going to say that. Barbara Berry played his wife. And literally, Linda Lavin, who was on a couple episodes, went on later to Alice fame. Didn't realize she was on this show. I guess she was on a couple episodes. And yes, she went on to play Alice for 9 years. Which, of course, I say Kiss My Grits all the time because of Flo. That was a show I watched all the time. I remember Alice. That was me. Jack Sue died during the show's run. He got very sick, got esophageal cancer. I remember he died. And I remember they did an episode where they were out of character. They were themselves at the precinct talking about him, doing a tribute. They showed clips and things. and they raised their glass. I actually remember that episode. Very few episodes do that, and I remember Young and Restless did that for Jeannie Cooper, for Catherine Chancellor, and of course for Neil, for Christophe St. John. They did special episodes where they toasted the actor and the character, kind of, but more so the actor. And I thought it was kind of cool. So they were the ones to do that then. I didn't know there was a Wojo pilot that Max Gale, they were going to do this whole spinoff for him, titled Wojo's Girl. They did, which they do in a lot of these shows. What they'll do is they'll kind of do an episode on the series, see if folks like it, see if it gels together, and almost kind of like a backdoor pilot, they call it. It's kind of like something just kind of do it and see what happens. Girlfriends did the game that way. They had a whole episode where it was the game. And only featured Joan kind of in the beginning. That it was established she was the cousin of the blah, blah, blah. And there's a spinoff. There you go. Some shows do that, actually. I want to get to the thought because Dallas Knots Landing, Dallas was already a separate thing. Yeah, Gary is on a couple of times. Actually, a different guy played Gary. But they just brought Bobby over to start Knots Landing and drop him off. So it was like the same thing kind of. So there's some people who do these backdoor pilots where a show, it's actually like a whole other show. And then they introduce it on to something else. They are the first ones, and I remember they had gay characters. They had a couple of gay characters on the show, and they were some of the first, the earliest reoccurring gay characters on American television, actually. Danny Arnold, I didn't know this, worked closely with the Gay Media Task Force, which now, of course, there's GLAAD, so that's kind of more out of that. So they both, of course, were the effeminate, usual stuff, but later became much more just like regular folk. But you can't discount that. It's one of those things where the show was a slow start, but back then they would sometimes take their time with shows and see them grow, and it became this huge hit. And also, it stayed a hit through its tenure. And literally, I didn't know this either until I read it. They ended on their own terms, so they were not canceled by the network. It's like Cheers. Cheers was like on 11 years, ended on their own terms. It's like Frasier too. There wasn't like nobody said goodbye, you got to go. So before you get kicked out, they were like, no, we'll end on our own terms. It'll be all good. And I love that. I completely love that. That they were able to do it, leave it on their own. They said the person said they didn't want, the people who were running said they didn't want to recycle storylines. That's the problem sometimes with comedy, half-hour comedy. It's how long can you keep going without recycling storyline or running stale? I feel like if things are run well and you could tell a million stories for years. If a drama can be on the air for 20, 21 years, why can't a comedy? But I don't know, it doesn't seem to happen that way. But I remember the show. I remember it was a big deal, and it's on DVD, and it was a syndication here, and that's why I caught a lot of them were in syndication. But there was some funny stuff. But I remember my first recollections of the show, especially, were that it was very diverse. That the cast looked diverse. And that's something that's very New York. I'm from New York. It's go to New York all the time. That was truth. It was. So Barney Miller, check it out. I'm sure it's probably on Pluto TV or somewhere. I don't know, but check it out. I'm talking about it. I'm bringing it out to the forefront again. I may watch some episodes myself and see what's up again with that. All these shows, it's mostly an audio show, but it has turned into a video and audio show. So if you're listening, or if you want to have something to listen to, we're on Spotify, Apple, Google, all those things. But YouTube is JLJ Media. So if you're listening and want to see what I look like, you can actually do that too, JLJ Media on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and I'll be bringing you more things that you may not have heard of. See you next time.